Alright, so for this portion of the project, I am creating a cup full of liquid in which a ice cube will fall into. So I'm starting out by drawing a profile and revolving that to make a cup. Reversing the normal is just to make everything work out well, just in case. And then also extruding the cup out just for the sake of the dot network, to avoid any water particles falling through or the ice cubes falling through. That of course will not be what is actually shown. And I'm making the ice cube. I'm just throwing it in a box and sculpting it. I made the mistake of not selecting the entire ice cube, as I just realized. So I gotta go and make sure I select it all and sculpt it again. And once it's sculpted, I can smooth it out using a smooth node. And now I'm just moving it up in place. I'm ready to be dropped into the cup. Had a nice location for it. Alright, now I'm going to create a bit of geometry in which the fluid volume will exist. So I'm just taking a cylinder here and placing it within the cup. Trying to make sure that it's placed reasonably well within the cup, and then I just use the flip fluid node to turn that volume into a liquid. Go into the dot network and kind of get the settings right on that. Close the bounding box in a little closer. Got to make the cup a static object so that the ice cube and the liquid stays within it. And there's the volume I was talking about earlier that we will be using for the sake of the dot network. I'm going to go ahead and throw on the material for the glass so I can see what I'm working with inside. I'm going to go ahead and make the ice cube a rigid body object so that it will drop into the cup just like that. And, kind of switching around in the to make sure everything interacts correctly the way I want. And one big problem I was having before was trying to get the buoyancy right. So that I found out that was just a matter of getting it to be in the right order, and then kind of changing around a lot of the parameters for the mass and the density between both the fluid and the ice cube. I decided to have it not automatically calculate the mass. I just set the mass pretty high so that I could have a little more control over the density and overall the buoyancy of the ice cube. So I'm just kind of going back and forth between the fluid solver and the fluid object and the ice cube to get the parameters how I like it, get a good dropping in and realistic seeming motion within the fluid. And a lot of these parameters I'm just playing around with because I don't actually know what I'm doing. But I'm just moving things around until I see something I like and stick to it. So I'm playing with the rotational stiffness of the ice cube to make it not move after a certain period of time, and try to get the motion just like how I like it. I had previously tried to have the water splash into the cup along with the ice cubes, but I was having a huge amount of issues over both the buoyancy and getting the water to render with a decent level of surface. I tried this method with the fluid being created just by a volume, and that has been working out a whole lot better for me. Alright, so now I'm just going through the material properties and changing things around, looking at the render, trying to figure out what all the different properties do and how they affect the color. One of the big issues I was having here was trying to figure out what that green hue was. As it turns out, I later found out the fluid interior had a different material property set to it, which I didn't realize until I saw that that material in the I don't know, palette there that I didn't recognize, and sure enough it had a green hue when I went to it. So here I am just changing colors everywhere, trying to troubleshoot where that green hue is coming from, what I can do to fix it. Eventually I found it, and in order to get some better reflections on the light in the render, I put those giant white grids on the side. I saw that in a tutorial on YouTube. It seemed pretty effective, because otherwise the glass was just, I don't know, didn't have any character to it with the way I had the light set up. Okay, so for this portion, I think I'm going to model some snow falling on the side of a cabin. And unlike the last simulation I did, the ice cube, I'm actually going to record this as I go and narrate it as I go as well, because I think I can do it with a lot less frustration and a lot quicker than the last simulation. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started on throwing together my log cabin and ground for this. And I'll probably speed up this process. Alright, so I've got a cabin going on here in the ground. I'll go ahead and name that geometry here. Okay. And I'll go ahead and set my camera right here since I kind of like that position. And while I'm at it, let's throw a light in here somewhere. I'm going to go ahead and turn down the intensity of that light too. Alright, so what I'm going to do for the, to start out with the snow, I'm just going to go with what I know, and I'm just going to emit some particles. And as a source, I'm going to throw up a grid. Alright. So I'm just going to choose that as a particle source emitter. And that is a whole lot more than I want, at least for right now. That's a lot nicer. Alright, and it's falling a little quick for snow, so I'm going to turn down gravity a lot. And I'll go ahead and throw in some wind direction to move it more towards the cabin. Let's throw wind force in here. Alright, that's more like it. Now we need to turn that. Actually, the first thing I'm going to do is make the ground in the cabin solid so the particles actually run into it. So I'm going to do the same thing I did on the last simulation with the ice, and just give it some volume for the DOP network. Not actually what is going to show up in the actual render. And I'll do the same thing for the cabin, except that's a lot of geometry in there. I'm actually just going to make a lot simpler outline basically of the cabin. Okay, so that should work well enough. I'm sure there's probably a lot quicker way of doing that, but I don't know it. Alright, so let's go ahead and create a static object based off both the ground and the cabin geometry. Alright, that seems pretty good. And I'll copy this over for the ground geometry as well. So now if I turn the particles on, hopefully they won't go through. Alright, great. I'm going to turn the bounce way down on them as well. Alright, so I've got the snow acting in a reasonable seeming way. but now I have to implement it in some kind of way that will actually show up in the render, because of course the well, they show up here, but not really how I want it. Alright, so I'm going to hop into the source particle node here. The fields are imported here. I'm just going to make little spheres and then copy them to the points. Cool. Alright, and there we have it. So I'm probably going to have the render automatically start, I don't know, 100 frames in, and maybe go 100 frames long or so. I might turn the gravity down a little bit more and here and there, but as far as apart from just tweaking things, that is how the simulation is done.